I never expected to find true love in the most unlikely place. You need to hear this. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sun hung low in the sky, casting eerie shadows on the walls of the old train station. That's where it all began. My heart raced as I felt the weight of loss pressing down on me. I clutched the crumpled letter in my shaking hands, every word sinking deeper into my chest. I had just found out that my mother was gone. She was my rock, my guiding light. The silence that enveloped me felt suffocating, as if the world had stopped turning. As I stumbled down the cracked platform, memories rushed through me. Her laughter echoed in my mind. The smell of her favorite lavender perfume still lingered in my nostrils. Each step forward felt heavier than the last. People brushed past me, eyes glued to their phones, oblivious to my pain. I was alone in a crowd, a hollow shell navigating through a world that felt foreign now. And then there was him. Just a blur at first, a stranger pacing back and forth. His dark hair fell into his eyes, and I could see the tension rippling through his body. A slice of curiosity pulled me toward him. We locked eyes, and in that instant, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in a while: hope. It was strange how in the darkest moments, the universe sends sparks of light. He seemed lost but resilient, a fierce battle raging behind those blue eyes. I sensed he was fighting his own demons much like I was. The air grew thick with unspoken words as we stood there, two broken souls searching for solace in the chaotic rhythm of life. Every breath I took was laced with anxiety, the uncertainty of being under the same roof. A train roared by, drowning out the silence, and I noticed a tear escape my eye. He reached out, brushing my cheek with his thumb. It was gentle, sincere. My heart pounded. How can a moment feel so monumental? How could someone I just met bring warmth in my icy despair? Before I could respond, the whistle of the next train shattered the moment, pulling us back into reality. He turned away, his jaw clenched. A sudden fear gripped me. Would I ever see him again? Would this chance encounter remain just a memory, washed away in the tide of grief? I felt a desperate urge to call out, to stop him, to reach for something more. But he disappeared into the crowd, and I was left standing there, consumed by confusion and longing. I took a deep breath, smelling salt and steel, a reminder that life continues, even when it feels overwhelming. Did I just find a connection? Or was it all a figment of my imagination shaped by grief? My heart raced at the thought of searching for him, yet fear paralyzed me. What if he was just as broken as I was? What if this was my only chance? My thoughts spiraled into chaos, but one question burned brightly in my mind. Could love truly blossom from the ashes of despair? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The next day was a blur of muted colors and dull sounds, the sun barely making its way through the clouds, mirroring the fog that clouded my mind. I wandered the streets, aimlessly searching for some semblance of peace, my heart still heavy with the weight of loss. Every corner I turned felt so painfully mundane, as if the world was deliberately mocking my sorrow. But amidst the crushing grief, an ember of determination flickered within me. If that fleeting moment with the stranger had taught me anything, it was that tenderness still existed, even in the darkest of times. I hadn't realized that under the sorrow my spirit yearned for connection, a chance to feel alive again, to find warmth and shared understanding. Hours passed, and as I walked, I could feel my mother's presence guiding me. I imagined her whispering words of encouragement, nudging me toward that unexpected spark. Go back to the station, I felt her say. A gentle push toward the unknown. The thought ignited a spark of hope that I couldn't ignore. Returning to that place felt both terrifying and exhilarating. I approached the platform with trepidation, scanning the crowd for a glimpse of him. But with every passing moment my hope waned, the ache of disappointment creeping in. I leaned against a post, watching trains arrive and depart, like pieces of my life that seemed to elude me entirely. Then I felt a presence beside me. My heart raced as I turned, and there he was, his dark hair. Those piercing blue eyes, the stranger who had momentarily touched my soul. He looked just as surprised to see me as I was to see him. "What are the odds?" he asked, a hint of a smile breaking through the tension on his face. It was the first time I'd seen warmth in his gaze, and it sent butterflies fluttering in my chest. "I don't know." My voice trembled, unsure of how to navigate this unexpected reconnection. "I was hoping to find you." He raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Me too." With that simple exchange, I felt walls beginning to fall. Our conversation flowed as he shared bits of his story, how he had lost someone who had shaped his life as well. The weight of their absence hung heavily between us, but as we spoke it felt like a healing balm, a validation of our shared grief, and each laugh, in each confession, the emotional barriers that had held us captive began to splinter. For the first time since learning of my mother's passing, I felt a flicker of joy as he made some witty remark about the randomness of life, but just as I began to believe in the possibility of something beautiful arising from our connection, he suddenly grew distant. A shadow crossed his expression, and the laughter faded like the light from a candle. "I don't think I'm the person you think I am," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, the weight of his own demons pulling him back. Confusion surged within me. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, every second stretching into a lifetime. "I carrying a burden." He paused, taking a deep breath that seemed filled with fragments of despair. "I wasn't just here waiting for a train, I was running from something, a past I can't escape." Disappointment coursed through me like ice water. Just when I thought we were discovering something real, fear had clutched his heart, threatening to pull us apart before we even began to connect. "You're not alone. We can face it together," I blurted out, the words tumbling from my lips before I could stop them. It felt like a plea woven with desperation, a desperate wish to pull him closer, to reach across the unspoken gap between us. He looked at me, that flicker of hope wavering in his eyes before he stepped back, shaking his head. "You don't understand. There are things I can't share." His voice cracked as if the walls he had put up were shaking. "And it's not fair to drag you into my chaos," he continued, frustration clouding his features. "You deserve better than this." The moment felt suspended in time, the world around us fading to a distant hum. I wanted to argue, to tell him he wasn't dragging me anywhere, that I was choosing to walk beside him, but the weight of his words hung heavy like fog, thick and unyielding. Before I could summon a coherent response, he turned suddenly, walking away as if tethered to a storm that loomed on the horizon. I called after him, emotions swirling, fear, longing, anger, but my voice seemed to drown in the cacophony of departing trains, and just like that, he disappeared again, swallowed by the sea of strangers. I was left standing there, caught between the taste of something beautiful and the haunting echoes of unresolved sorrow. While he may have chosen retreat, I found myself grappling with a question that pained my heart. How could I reach someone who wasn't ready to be found? I sank down onto the bench, feeling the weight of the world crashing around me. I could still feel the flicker of hope in my chest, but it felt so fragile now, trembling in the face of overwhelming uncertainty. The station noise blurred into a kaleidoscope of sound, and beneath it all resided a troubling thought: what if this was just a beautiful echo of something that could have been? The days that followed were a landscape of shadows and half-light, where memories danced like ghosts in the corner of my mind, refusing to let me find rest. Each morning, I awoke with the weight of lost warmth pressing down on my chest. My dreams were filled with him, flashes of laughter and fleeting glances, all of which faded with the dawn, leaving nothing but the chill of reality. I returned to the station often, hoping against hope that I might catch another glimpse of him. I watched the trains come and go, their metal shells echoing with stories of departure and arrival. Yet, every time my heart soared at the sight of dark hair or blue eyes, it was nothing but the cruel tricks that memories play. I was beginning to feel like a shadow myself, haunting that place in search of something that felt ungraspable, slipping through my fingers like gauze. One afternoon, as rain fell softly, casting a silvery sheen across the bustling station, I noticed an elderly woman sitting on a nearby bench, her hands folded in her lap, eyes cast down. There was a serene sadness about her that tugged at my heart. I felt a stirring of compass ion, a small ember of warmth rising within me. I glanced around. Most people were darting to shelter, too busy to notice the small battles each soul around them was fighting. Drawing a breath, I approached her. "Excuse me," I said softly. Are you okay? She looked up, her expression momentarily surprised. Oh dear, she replied, her voice tender yet wavering. I'm just waiting for my son. He's late. I could feel the weight of old memories intertwining in our brief exchange. To know that feeling, I murmured, a sad smile touching my lips. Grief has a way of keeping us waiting longer than we'd like. Her weathered eyes softened, and she leaned closer. You've known loss, she stated with haunting clarity. It can feel like wandering through a fog, can't it? For a moment there was a connect Iona shared acknowledgement of the weight we both carried. I sat down beside her, the rhythm of the falling rain creating a cocoon around us. I just wish I could reach someone. I met someone who felt like light in my life, but now he's gone again. I don't know how to break through his barriers. The woman nodded solemnly. Love is never simple, is it? Sometimes it's wrapped in layers of hurt and fear. And though we can shine light for others, we can't force them to step into it. I know, I sighed, feeling the tears brimming in my eyes. But what if he never sees it? What if he continues to hide away? Then you create your own light. You keep shining, even if it's just for yourself, she advised, her voice like a gentle balm. You can't carry his burden for him, but you can show him the grace of acceptance, even in silence. As those words settled within me, a flicker of hope sparked anew. Maybe I didn't have to fix him. Maybe my role was simply to be there, to hope, to patiently offer understanding. I left the old woman feeling strangely uplifted. It was a small moment, but kindness has a way of rippling through space and time, igniting hearts unaware. Weeks slipped by, blurred day filled with echoes of laughter and the achy sensation of longing. I continued to visit the station, determined to be a presence of light for both myself and him if he ever chose to return. I found solace in writing letters addressed to him that would never be sent, pouring my heart into thoughts that hung like stars in my soul. Every letter began with an opening line of uncertainty but ended with words bursting with hope. I believe in you, or am here when you're ready. Each time I left a letter on that bench where we first connected, it felt like sending a little piece of my heart into the universe, waiting for it to echo back. Then one evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, I spotted a figure standing at the edge of the platform. My heart surged with recognition. It was him, standing solitary against the vibrant backdrop, a silhouette of fragility and strength. My heart raced as I took a hesitant step forward. But before I could call out, a sudden commotion erupted, a scramble of feet, voices raised in alarm. I turned just in time to see a man collapse at the far end of the platform, the crowd encircling him like a chaotic storm. Help! Someone call for an ambulance. A woman's voice broke through the din, but my attention was riveted to the stranger. His eyes darted between the emergency unfolding and mine, a whirlwind of emotions playing across his face. He took a single step backward, fear clouding his blue eyes, and before I could stop him, he turned and fled the station, swallowed by the chaos and dusk. Panic seized my heart, a new layer of despair piling on top of an already heavy load. I stood there, stuck in that moment, the possibility of reconnection slipping away once more, save for the chaos that surrounded us. What had I lost this time? The ember of hope that had been reignited now flickered dangerously close to extinguishing altogether. As I rushed to the scene, my heart pounded, not only with fear for the stranger's fate but for the profound understanding that love, longed for and fragile, could weave itself through calamity, forever caught between the chaos of life and the simple yearning for connection. The weeks that followed were a turbulent sea of uncertainty, a blend of heartache and flickering hope. The image of him fleeing that day haunted me like a specter, his retreat etched into my memory as clearly as the chaos that unfolded. I replayed it endlessly in my mind like a looped film reel. My letters sat like unfinished conversations at the station, their ink dry but their meanings alive and waiting. Every visit further dragged my emotional compass through the mire of longing and speculation. I thought of the elderly woman often, her words echoing in my heart, "Create your own light." Yet I wondered, how could I construct light when it felt as if I were forever standing in shadow? Each day seemed to stretch endlessly, wrapped around my spirit, constricting it tighter and tighter until I felt breathless. That Saturday was particularly dismal, the sky shrouded in clouds heavy with unspent rain. I decided on a whim to take a different route to the station, seeking new scenery to fill my lungs with fresh air. hoping for something to shift inside of me. As I turned down a narrow side street lined with small shops, a little cafe caught my eye. Its window was fogged, the inviting warmth within beckoning like a forgotten promise. I wandered inside, the scent of coffee mingling with the aroma of baked goods. Settling at the back, I let my mind drift. As I sipped dark coffee, a soft laughter rang out from the counter, where a couple chatted amiably. Watching them felt bittersweet, the ease of their connection stirring something deep within me. And for a moment I could almost convince myself I wasn't alone. But the silence of my heart persisted, until a familiar sound made my ears perk up, the melodic chime of a bell that adorned the cafe door. My gaze reflexively snapped to the entrance, a flicker of hope igniting again. I had forgotten that this cafe was a common hangout for commuters waiting for their trains. Could it be? But it wasn't him. Instead, a child came bounding in, her cheeks flushed with excitement, clutching a brightly colored balloon that danced with her every movement. I watched as she dashed to a corner table where a weary-looking man sat hunched over a laptop. "Daddy, look!" she exclaimed, her voice a burst of sunshine in the dim cafe. The man glanced up, and for a fleeting moment, something flickered in his expression. Was it recognition, or the semblance of a smile? But it faded almost instantly, replaced by the weight and weariness of adult strife. I found my heart aching for him, this man whose spirit seemed caught in the undertow of responsibility and exhaustion, a mirror of my own struggles with finding light. And as the girl tugged on his sleeve, urging him to join in her laughter, I couldn't help but think of what it might mean to finally break through someone else's barriers. Just as I turned to leave, hoping to reclaim some of that warmth myself, I felt a tremor of recognition. The fleeting thought clung to me. Could it really be fate bringing me back to familiar worlds? I stepped outside, my heart racing with what felt like inevitable collision. Turning the corner, I noticed a figure leaning against the wall a few blocks away. My breath caught. It was him, the one I had been searching for, staring blankly at the pavement, his anxious energy radiating through the air. He was a portrait of uncertainty cloaked in shadows. Tentatively I approached, my heart thrumming against my ribcage. He looked up just as I reached him, and for a heartbeat, everything around us faded, the noise of the cafe, the shadows stretching across the sidewalk. It was just the two of us, two lost souls searching for direction in a world ripe with confusion. "Hey," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He searched my eyes, uncertainty dancing across his features. "What are you doing here?" The question felt loaded, years of unspoken emotion simmering underneath his tone. "I've been waiting for you," I confessed, feeling vulnerable yet resolute. "I didn't know when or if I'd see you again, but I hoped." A silence fell between us, thick and tangible. I could see the battle inside him unfolding like a tragic play, fear and longing mixing in a way I understood all too well. But just as he opened his mouth as if to say something weighty, a sudden shout erupted from behind us, breaking the fragile moment. "Stop right there." "Hey!" A voice called, sharp as a knife, drawing our attention to three figures striding toward us, aggressive energy swirling around them like a tempest. My heart pounded with dread. Their motives felt predatory, and I felt the air thin as the reality of danger sank in. He stepped closer to me instinctively, yet I could sense the fight or flight response bubbling beneath the surface of his calm facade. "Who are they?" I breathed, fear wrapping around me like a cold shroud. "They're a thyre from my past," he stammered, eyes wide with helplessness. I thought I could leave it behind. The air tightened around us, each second stretching into an eternity as the figures advanced, the world around us dimming in the face of unforeseen confrontation. I didn't know what lay ahead, but the weight of his unreadable expression told me with alarming clarity that this moment might change everything for better or worse. And as the storm swept in, I held my breath, caught at the edge of uncertainty, with wild hope colliding against the looming shadows of the past, ready to unveil truths I never expected to hear. The figures loomed closer, their intentions masked under layers of bravado and menace. My breath quickened as I tried to gauge his reaction, searching for a glimmer of assurance among the rising tension. The recognition on his face was a mixture of fear and regret, each emotion wrestling for dominance as they neared. "Stay behind me," he breathed, his voice barely audible. But I couldn't allow myself to be a mere bystander in this unfolding chaos. My heart raced not just for my own safety, But for him, this man I had hoped would share a future with Medhat now seemed so perhaps painfully out of reach. "Just walk away, Jacob," one of the strangers called out, his tone dripping with venom. "You think you can just erase us from your life? You didn't think we'd let you go that easy, did you?" Jacob flinched at the name, a stark reminder that he was still tethered to a history fraught with shadows. The resonance of it prickled my skin, and I could feel my heart shaking under the weight of his past. Whoever these men were, their hunger for vengeance danced dangerously close to us, like predators encircling their prey. "Listen to them, Jacob," I urged lightly, my eyes darting between him and the encroaching figures. "We can get away from this. I don't need to know what happened, let's just leave." But he stayed rooted, fists clenching at his sides as if he were wrestling with the demons that now emerged. "I can't," he muttered, his voice nearly a whisper. "I can't run. Not anymore." The pain in his declaration sliced through me, igniting an emotional turmoil that swirled around us. With a sudden push less outward but more inward, his defiance crystallized. It was as if he decided that, at this moment, his battle was not just one of survival, but of reclaiming his truth. "I left you behind," he shouted, the desperation reaching out to every soul present. "You're wrong if you think I owe you any part of my life now." The leading man smirked with mock amusement. "You think they'll listen to that? You're mistaken if you think anyone will forgive you so easily." I felt frozen, straddling the line between fear and an unfamiliar resolve that surged forth. This was no longer just Jacob's confrontation. It belonged to me, too. In that moment, as raw adrenaline coursed through my veins, I stepped closer to Jacob, my hand instinctively finding his. "We will not let you take him," I declared, steadier than I felt. The energy shifted palpably, drawing the eyes of the men toward me, a defiant spark in the midst of upheaval. My heart pounded not just from fear, but from a profound desire to stand beside him. "He has fought hard to be free from what you represent. You don't own him." The laughter evaporated in the air. They turned toward me, expressions shifting, perhaps igniting surprise at my audacity. The moment hung, fragile yet potent, making it impossible to distinguish the intent of their next move. But then a warmth enveloped me, not from the sun hidden behind clouds, nor from adrenaline alone, but from the way Jacob's hand tightened around mine, grounding me in his silent acknowledgement. The vulnerability in his gaze was accompanied by something Maureen ember of hope igniting in the face of despair. The first figure moved, but just then, an unexpected commotion erupted from behind. A flurry of footsteps approached us. A group of people rounded the corner with determination etched on their faces, some yelling for help, others waving their phones, presumably capturing the scene. The three men hesitated, glancing at each other with uncertainty as they registered the shift in momentum. "Back off," a woman shouted, practically radiating strength. "This isn't your place." I could hardly breathe as I saw the possibility of escape shimmer before me like a mirage. The urgency around us transformed the atmosphere. This precarious situation ignited something fierce and undeniable within the crowd gathering. I could hardly believe that strangers would rally behind us, but it was happening. "Let's go," Jacob urged, this time pulling me to flee. With the confusion sowing discord among our pursuers, we weaved our way through the crowd, heart pounding with every step. Freedom felt within grasp, yet reality pulled at me like an anchor. "What if they come back?" I gasped, panic still catching in my throat as we dashed into an alley just around the corner, desperate for shelter. "They may," he said, breathless urgency coloring his words. "But not before I tell you everything, the truth," he promised, his face earnest under the dim light. Before I could grasp what lay beneath his proclamation, the realization crashed over me. Would his truth ease the turmoil, or plunge us back into not just the chaos of what was but the intricate web of what might never be? Just as I opened my mouth to ask more, we heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoing loudly in the alley behind us. My heart raced, caught between the fragile flicker of newfound hope and the crippling dread of unresolved dangers looming once again. "Go," he insisted, shoving me ahead as he prepared to face whatever threat came our way. "I'll handle it." The fierce connection between us shone brightly at that moment, more radiant than the shadows closing in. Yet we stood on precipices, uncertain of where this newfound strength of ours would lead us. I didn't want to leave him, but there was no time for weakness now, no more room for wishful thinking. And with a gaze that promised more than mere survival, I turned to run, torn between the right path ahead and the heart of this journey that still lay undiscovered. The distance grew between us, and with it, a truth I never expected to face loomed ahead, more daunting than anything I had encountered so far. Would we emerge together? Or would the dusk of unspeakable truth swallow us whole? I stumbled through the narrow alley, the cool air slicing through the heat of adrenaline that had enveloped me moments before. I barely heard Jacob's voice urging me to run. Its urgency faded into the background, overshadowed by the cacophony of blaring sirens and shouts of bewildered strangers in the streets. I felt the vibrant pulse of the city swirl around me, alive and chaotic, yet drowning in a sorrow that seeped through my bones. Keep moving. I hushed to myself as I darted between the shadowy outlines of buildings, not looking back, though my instincts screamed at me to check. Still, the distance between us was a raw, palpable ache that echoed in my heart, a reminder of the bond one had so boldly declared. Now seemingly weighed down by uncertainty and fear as I navigated the unfamiliar labyrinth of the alleyways, I thought of the promise Jacob made, that he would tell me everything. My mind wrestled with the decision he would need to face. I couldn't even fathom what lay hidden behind his walls, the ghosts that haunted him, and what truth could free him, or us, from the chains of his past. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught my attention from the side. I paused, my breath hitching, as I recognized a familiar face emerging from the shadows. Clara, my old friend, her eyes wide with worry. She rushed toward me, relief flooding her features when she realized I was still intact. "What on earth happened?" she asked, gripping my shoulders. "I saw the commotion. Are you okay?" I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. I think he's in trouble, Clara. Jacob, I trailed off, feeling the weight of my words. We barely knew each other, yet here I was, entangled in the whirlwind of his life, and it terrified me. Clara peered into my eyes, searching for something she could latch onto. "Oh God, you're shaken. Did those men hurt him?" "No," I exclaimed, shaking my head. I had to believe in the choices we had made together in that moment, in the courage he had found, if only briefly. "He's fighting. He wants to tell me everything." "But time is slipping," Clara said, her voice urgent. "We need to find him. Now." A flicker of hope ignited within me, realization that I was not alone, that even in this swirling mess, there were people willing to help. "Where do we start?" I asked, the yoke of uncertainty beginning to ease from my shoulders. Clara pointed down another alley, her confidence palpable. "I saw him go that way." If we hurry before she could finish, the dull echo of footsteps reverberated again, growing louder, making my stomach curl. "We need to hide," I hissed, pulling Clara behind an indented wall at the junction where the alleys converged. The footsteps grew nearer, and I held my breath, peeking out cautiously. My heart sank as I spotted two figures with harsh silhouettes emerging down the darkened path, their shadows flickering ominously against the brick walls. "They're looking for him," I whispered, dread pooling in my chest. "We shouldn't get caught." Clara clenched my hand tightly, her fear and adrenaline somehow mingling with determination. "We'll be fine. We have to trust him." But little did I know that the sound of footsteps was not just the herald of danger, it was also a signal of unexpected kindness. As the men continued to advance, the alley erupted into turmoil. A cascade of voices filled the air, a collective rally of strangers appearing with resolute intent. They spilled into the alley, pushing past the lurking figures, creating confusion where there once was fear. I glanced back toward Clara, and the relief in her gaze promised safety in numbers. "This is our chance," I urged. "We need to find him." With the sudden rush of bodies, I slipped from our temporary hideout and sprinted into the fray. The energy shifted, a palpable, crackling force that knitted strangers together in shared purpose. Then, like a beacon in the tumult, I caught sight of him, standing tall against the chaos. Jacob. His eyes searched for me, wild yet steadfast, and in that moment, I felt the world narrow down to the two of us. In an instant our eyes locked, a communion that transcended that chaos, but was laced with a wave of terror as the figures continued to press on. My pulse quickened as I wove through the throng, propelled by instinct and an overwhelming need to reach him. The crowd shifted around us like a living tapestry, everyone at once a part of this fight, this unexpected moment of solidarity. "Jacob," I finally called out, my heart racing, but before he could turn fully to meet me, a figure loomed behind him, a man among the chaos, pulling something from his jacket, something that glinted ominously in the dim light. "Look out!" I screamed, arm outstretched in warning, feelings of dread erupting deep within me. My heart dropped as time suspended. The tension snapped. That moment of air and space felt like eternity, both vivid and crystallized. Would I reach him? Would we survive this chance, a thread that could bring us together or tear us irrevocably apart? And as the screams and sirens melted into a crescendo of chaos, I realized that this wasn't just about Jacob's truth, or his fight for redemption. It was mine as well, intertwined inseparably with his fate. In that heartbeat before impact, a single thought crystallized in my mind. True love wasn't just found, it was fought for, and it always came with a cost. The chaos erupted like a thunderstorm, shadows flickering as figures lunged forward. My throat tightened at the sight of the menacing outline, and despite every instinct screaming for caution, my heart drew me towards Jacob. I surged through the mass of bodies, propelled by a force greater than fear, rooted in the belief that love could carve a path through darkness. "Jacob!" I shouted again, desperation sharpening my voice as I pushed against the current of humanity grappling with their own fears. The world blurred around me, people shoved and swayed while I focused solely on him. Paradoxically, the chaos felt protective, an odd cocoon against the impending danger. Time stretched taut, and I could almost reach out to him to touch the warmth of his being, to feel the connection that had sparked between us in stolen moments and shared dreams. He turned slightly, catching my gaze, his expression streaked with confusion, fear, and a flicker of unyielding hope. Then, like a threat pulled too far, tensions unraveled. The figure behind Jacob lunged, a flash of steel glimmering ominously in the fluorescent lights. My body moved before my mind could fully comprehend, instincts honed through survival blooming to life. "Jacob!" I screamed one last time, launching myself towards him, the world narrowing around that singular focus. But the blur of bodies intensified, and I lost my footing amidst the crowd, stumbling to the ground. The world tilted as I fell, and while the energy surged around me, I felt utterly vulnerably a nobody in a sea of chaos. Clara's voice pierced through the din, frantic and raw, but I couldn't pull away from the spot where gravity pinned me down. "Get up! We need you!" And in that instant a hand reached out toward me from the crowd, not just any hand, but the strong hand of a stranger, offering guidance, support, and a touch of fierce determination. I grasped it tightly, propelled upward from the ground and into motion once more. The world around me softened, and suddenly, amid the chaos stood less of a battle, a community on the brink of resilience. Through the gathered spectators, some shouted encouragement, and a few began to chant Jacob's name, harnessing the collective energy into a united force. Their voices bled into the backdrop of chaos, rising above the disarray, weaving a tapestry of hope against the storm. My heart raced as I caught another glimpse of Jacob, his eyes now scanning the crowd, igniting a chance for connection amid the fray. He spotted me, and in his expression and intricacy of fear and the flicker of hope I found strength coursing through my veins. The bond between us echoed in the shouts and murmurs surrounding us. "Behind you!" I cried again, regaining my voice, pulling every ounce of courage to be heard above the roaring crowd. Jacob turned, and I braced myself as the chaos around him intensified, muscles tensed, every fiber of my being wanting to shield him from the storm. Suddenly, the weight of unexpected kindness surged once more. One of the bystanders, a tall woman with fierce eyes and a determined stance, stepped forward, linking her arm with Jacob's, creating a barrier against the rising threat. She faced the looming menace head-on, her courage infectious, unraveling the fears threatening to consume humanity. Was this unexpected coalition among strangers that fanned the flickering flame of hope. The faceless crowd transformed from chaos to a tapestry of humanity, with each individual weaving their own strength toward our common goal: survival, truth, love. "Run!" Clara shouted as another surge of adrenaline raced through the crowd. Jacob nodded to me, and the connection between us felt electric, as if the very air around us sparked with the realization that we weren't just fighting for him but for something greater, the unbreakable bond of love. In that chaos, we began to move inch by inch closer together. The shadows followed, though relentless and unforgiving, tugging at the edges of the safer places we desperately sought. As we stumbled further into the fray, a siren decision loomed over me. I had to. No. I had to confront the truth even if it came with uncertainty. even if it shattered the fragile dreams of our budding connection. Jacob, I said, each step pulling me closer to him. What happened? Tell me everything. The urgency in my voice cut through the noise, seeking my own answers, desperate for the truth that could set us free. But before he could respond, a crashing sound shattered the chaos. Gunshots echoed through the alley, sharp and deadly. The world slowed, and in that moment of stark clarity, fear pierced through me like a dagger. Clara's scream split the air, and instinctively I reached for Jacob. He turned and our eyes locked again, but this time it was not just the weight of hope that surged between us. It was the impending realization that our reality had shifted irretrievably. The crowd erupted into a frenzy, people scattering in every direction, desperate for escape. Jacob's face flashed with determination, but amid the pandemonium, I felt the walls closing in. Come with me, he shouted, his voice fighting to stay above the disarray. But just then, as I stumbled closer, a shadow fell upon Jacob, and a figure emerged at the mouth of the alley. Let's see what you've been hiding, Jacob, came a cold, familiar voice, sending chills racing down my spine. In that split second before I could react, dread wrapped around me, tightening like a noose that I froze. The words stayed lodged in my throat as a realization washed over me. His was not just about Jacob's past, it was about mine too, and the shards of secrets we had yet to uncover. The storm was far from over. As fear morphed into a palpable tension, I knew with undeniable clarity. Whatever awaited us now would test the very core of who we were, and what we dared to fight for. The unexpected sanctuary of kindness swirled around us, but danger loomed heavy at the edges. Would we stand together in the wake of uncertain storms, or would the truth threaten to rip apart the fragile bonds we'd forged? In that heartbeat, the revelation struck harder than any blow from the outside world. I had to prepare for what happened next. But as I stood my ground, breathing amidst chaos, I realized I wasn't just fighting for him, I was fighting for us. The chaos erupted around us, but my heart thudded in a rhythm of fear and anticipation that drowned out the surrounding pandemonium. Just as I thought the shadows encroaching upon Jacob might consume him entirely, life surged through my veins. I refused to let darkness win. Jacob, I called out again, not just as a plea but a promise embedded in my tone. This was not just a frantic search for safety. It was a vow that echoed deep within me, an unyielding expression of my commitment to him. I pushed through the bodies, propelled by an instinct that felt primal, a need to protect what I held dear. Stay close, he shouted back, his eyes fierce with resolve. In that moment, the world shimmered with possibility amid fear. I rushed to his side just as the figure that had haunted us stepped further into the light. The glint of malice in his eyes pierced through the haze of urgency, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. Did you really think you could escape me, Jacob? The stranger sneered, words laden with venom as he advanced. For an instant, I felt the weight of the world pressing down on Jacob's shoulders, memories dancing in his eyes, shadows from the past threatening to swallow him whole. He took a step closer to me, a silent protector in the embrace of chaos. I could sense the unspoken words in the space between us, fear mingling with the undeniable spark of hope. Tara, the tall woman who had aided us moments before, stepped between us and the threat. You'll have to go through me first, she declared, fists clenched and spine rigid with courage, shining like a beacon in the storm. But instead of stepping back, the stranger laughed as if taunting us. How noble, he said, a sardonic edge creeping into his voice. But you're out of your depth. I felt an urge to shrink away, but defiance surged within me. We weren't fighting a battle meant solely for Jacob. I had crossed the threshold into this fight willingly, entangled in a web that included my own fears and vulnerabilities. My heart raced, echoing my resolve, and I found solace imagining our future life less marred by shadows. Ignoring the swirl of anxiety, I reached for Jacob, our fingers brushing together for the briefest moment. It ignited warmth, a reminder of every shared secret and hidden yearning. You don't have to face this alone, I whispered, hoping he could hear the sincerity in my voice despite the chaos thundering around us. He nodded, effort etched in the furrow of his brow. I'm not alone. Not anymore. As Tara stood her ground, the threats loomed closer, and the air thickened with tension. My mind raced. What had brought this man here? What did he want from Jacob? The questions weighed heavy, mixing with the terror searching for a crack in our resolve. Then a heavy crash reverberated through the alleyway. tearing the moment apart. Sarah, a girl who had barely been more than a blur in the corner of my vision, had fallen tripped over a pile of discarded debris while fleeing the chaos. "Help!" she cried out, her voice trembling, laced with sheer panic, reminding me that this wasn't just about us, but about everyone caught in the storm's fury. Jacob's eyes darted toward her, torn between protecting me and aiding the girl who now lay vulnerable and exposed. "Go!" Jacob shouted, pointing to Tara. "Get her to safety. I'll handle this." His determination echoed like a heartbeat, punctuating the frantic "I snapped, a touch of desperation creeping in. "We can't leave her behind." But as the enemy narrowed his focus on us both, I felt the chasm between our choices tear wider. I reached for Jacob's arm, but time was allowing no moment for hesitation. If he didn't act, we might all become trapped in the cycle of fear. The shadow shifted again, eyes glinting, heart of darkness inching closer. In that the breath centered between life and peril, something ignited in me. "We'll fight together. Whatever you have to face, I'm with you, Jacob." His gaze met mine, and for the first time I saw the shifting tides. Uncertainty morphed into something fierce and unwavering. A shared bond forged in that fleeting moment of connection ignited my own courage. "Together," he responded, a quiet power echoing in the resolve of his voice, but the evanescent calm shattered like glass, and suddenly, with a lurch, the enemy lunged towards us. In the blink of an eye, everything transitioned to confusion. Fear coiled in the pit of my stomach, and I retreated instinctively, adrenaline surging. Behind me, Clara's voice rang out, screaming for safety, and I could hear Tara's protective instincts flaring as screams erupted from the crowd. A sense of urgency pooled in my veins as I prepared myself to move, desperate to break through the chaos. We needed to escape this dark cycle, and Jacob's valor surged beside me. But just as I considered our potential escape route, a horrific realization sank in. The flash of recognition hit me like a jolt. The face of the figure before us reminded me of someone I knew. As he squared his shoulders, eyes blazing with ferocity, clarity weaved through the fear. Who he was and the secret he held, an unbearable weight that threatened to carry my past crashing into the present. "Jacob, he's..." My breath caught in my throat. But before I could finish, the shadows spread wider and darkness howled, swallowing my words and the very space around us. In a heartbeat, the storm surged again, but this time it contained the vulnerability of our shared truths, secrets intertwined in ways neither of us could have ever anticipated. As we charged into the unknown, I held tight to the threads of hope that connected our hearts, knowing that whatever lay ahead, we would fight for love, for survival, and above all, for the chance to emerge from this darkness together. The shadows writhed, cloaking the chaos in an even deeper darkness. Our breaths came quick, mingled with the cries for help and the clash of hope against despair. Jacob and I stood on the precipice, hearts thrumming in synchrony, yet uncertainty clawed at my insides, bullying me into silence. My eyes locked onto the enemy, the weight of my revelation hanging in the air like smoke in a dying fire. This battle was not just about survival, but about secrets that could unravel everything I held dear. "Who are you?" Jacob demanded, his voice straining against the tension. "What do you want?" The figure smiled, a facade of confidence veiling deeper currents of malice. "Oh, you wouldn't remember me, would you?" he sneered, his posture relaxed as if toying with us. "But you will soon enough." With a furious scream, Clara suddenly broke free from the fear that had gripped her, darting towards Sarah, who still lay scrambling to collect herself amid the debris. A fire ignited within me, spurring me into action. "Clara, no!" I shouted, instinctively reaching for her, knowing the dangers that lurked in every corner. "Stay back!" Clara yelled, her voice trembling, yet brave in the face of danger. Tara stepped back toward her, eyes alert, ready to shield. My pulse quickened, each beat underscoring the urgency of the moment. But Clara was unstoppable, propelled by a mixture of fear and determination, and she was moving towards the enemy's chaos with unbridled defiance. I felt the pull of fate wrap around our fates like the embrace of storm clouds, unwilling to let us skirt around the heart of conflict any longer. "We can't let him have any power over us," I breathed, releasing my grip on Jacob's arm as clarity surged through my veins. In that instantaneous decision, I turned, me heart racing, pounding in time to my resolve. "We stand together no matter what," I shouted, echoing Jacob's earlier promise, trying to tether our spirits to one another. It felt monumental, like casting aside chains that had bound us for too long. Just as Clara plunged towards Sarah, a haunting laugh leaked from the stranger's lips. "Are you sure you want to confront your demons, Clara? You may find they're more real than you think." I froze in my tracks, horror seeping into the words that sought to unravel me. Jacob tensed beside me, his breath a sharp rasp as the realization penetrated our bubble. "Clara!" he called out, and I was already rushing forward, my heart caught in a tumult of fear and fury. But before I could reach her, the stranger raised his hand, the air around him crackling with energy like electric charges awaiting release. "You're so close, aren't you?" His eyes locked onto mine, a dark abyss reflecting fragments of my past I had tried to bury. "Back off." Tara charged, hands raised. I could see her uncertainty hidden behind unwavering determination, her allegiance to Jacob and me grounding her even when the storm raged on. In that fleeting moment, I thought of my family, the veil of safety that had been torn apart long ago, a chain that linked us in pain and suffering, one that seemed to connect to the sinister figure before us. "What do you know?" I yelled, desperation edging my voice. "What have you done?" "Oh, darling, it's not what I've done. It's what he will do." He gestured ominously toward Jacob, whose face crumpled with confusion mixed with unfathomable dread. "Enough," Jacob barked, stepping forward as if to shield me. "This isn't about whatever you think you have against me, Clara." But before Jacob could complete his sentence, the stranger flickered, a momentary shimmer of truth encased within a mantle of shadows. My heart raced as I caught a glimpse of the raw power he wielded, the tantalizing hint of control sparking in details I couldn't yet comprehend. With a fierce snarl he lunged, a blur of darkness colliding with the collective strength of our group, the last flickers of humanity before pure chaos reignited the alley. And then, amidst the clashing bodies, I saw something inexplicably beautiful, a moment of catching breath where time slowed, where the world faded as if fate conspired to suspend the chaos in a fragile embrace. Jacob's eyes met mine, a silent affirmation of shared trueness igniting like a flame into the darkness. But just as I felt clarity wash over me, the world shattered into pieces around us. The impact of the collision ricocheted through the alley, and Clara's scream pierced the air like shards from a broken glass. She had been thrown back, and the stranger's laughter, tremorous and gleeful, echoed like a death knell. "Together?" he mocked. "Let's see how far that bond extends before it shatters." In that moment, the veil of safety dropped, and fear swept over me like a chilling tide. I knew that whatever had been awakened in this confrontation, the secrets, the lies, the connections that laced through our lives, were about to come crashing down. A panicked thought grasped me as I watched fear sweep across Jacob's face. There was something he had not shared, something that lingered in his shadows. I took a trembling breath, realizing I had to confront not just the darkness surrounding us, but the shadows haunting Jacob's heart. "Jacob, I need you to trust me," I shouted in the swirling chaos, the truth spilling from my lips. "Tell me what you know now." But from the corner of my eye, I could see Clara struggling to stand, a glimmer of fear cutting sharper than any blade. "What if it's too late?" she cried, and the question hung heavy in the air. And just like that, brewing on the horizon, something both terrifying and magnificent coiled like a serpent, ready to strike. As shadows encroached upon us with an unrelenting grip, I knew that this fight, fraught with cracks in its foundation, was far from over, and that heartbeat, the fate of our truth, hung perilously alive within the precious bonds we desperately clung to, teetering on the edge of oblivion. What lay ahead loomed dark and uncertain. The revelation lingered like smoke, choking off breath and hope, and as I waited for Jacob's answer, the world twisted into darkness once more. The memories of that tumultuous night flickered through my mind, echoes of chaos and fear etched deep into my soul. It felt like being caught between two worlds, one vibrating with life and possibility, the other darkened by shadows of the past that refused to let me escape. I remember the moment I first saw Jacob's despair mingling with determination, our hands grasped tightly together as we briefly tasted courage amidst swirling doubt. The confrontation had shaken everything within us, forcing truths to rise like bubbles from the depths. Standing there in the dimly lit alley with Clara and Tara beside me, I felt an insatiable urge to not just be a passive participant in this unimaginable moment, but to take the reins of my own destiny, entwined with Jacob's. "Tell me what you know," I had shouted into the maelstrom, my heart pounding, the weight of uncertainty threatening to crush the budding love that had ignited between us. But now, as the dust settled and the chaos faded into a haunting stillness, I realized we hadn't just battled an external threat. We had plunged into the depths of our own souls. The darkness that had surrounded us now felt muted, but it didn't erase the damage done. Clara had been directly involved, yet the weight of what was happening took me by surprise. It wasn't merely about surviving anymore. It was a fight for belonging, for connection, and our intertwined fates hung thinly in the balance. I turned my gaze to Jacob, the man whose past I barely knew but who seemed woven into my very being. Jacob? I murmured, and tenderness spilled from every edge of that single word. My heart raced as his troubled blue eyes met mine, alive with vulnerability but also equipped with an undeniable spark. I need you to open up to me. Each syllable fell into the hush, weighted with the gravity of our shared experiences. He hesitated, the turbulence of his inner world playing across his face like a tempest. I wanted to protect you, he finally breathed, the ache in his voice palpable. My past, it's dark, filled with mistakes. The people chasing me are shadows of who I once was, and I didn't want you to get caught in it. Using that simple phrase, shadows of who I once was, unraveled me, igniting a soft wave of warmth that pushed through the remnants of dread. He was not just another tormented soul seeking forgiveness. He was someone who had fought hard against the currents, yearning for a way to emerge intact. Being with me puts you in danger, and I can't bear that, he continued, eyes glistening, vulnerability lacing his every word. I thought I could shoulder it alone, but I can't. My heart flipped, surprised by the honesty that danced between us, raw and real. Then don't shoulder it alone, I urged, stepping closer. We fight together, Jacob. I refuse to let you hide from whatever demons you think can destroy us. My voice cracked under the weight of meaning, but clarity surged. I could no longer ignore the pieces of my own heart longing to mend. A flicker of uncertainty passed between us. I don't know if I deserve your loyalty, he said quietly, shame nearly suffocating his spirit. You don't know what I don't care, I interrupted, cutting through the shadows that clung to him. What I do care about is standing beside you, every step of the way. I reached for his hand, entwining our fingers with an intensity that allowed warmth to wash over our fears. And then in a single breath the air shifted. A cascade of silence tumbled like leaves in the wind, enveloping us. It was a silence thick with understanding, acceptance, and the harrowing beauty of love knitting together jagged edges of vulnerability. Perhaps, we thought, we could face anything if we chose to stand unified. But even with that light dawning in our eyes, the looming threat remained. Echoes of the past ripple through the present, reminding us that battles were not merely fought but demanded sacrifice. Reflections of the night we'd just survived lurked behind those shadows, whispering doubt. Suddenly Clara's voice cut through. We have to get out of here. They might come back. We were not out of danger yet. Our moment of vulnerability could potentially become a moment of disaster in an instant. Jacob stood tall, a new resolve illuminating his countenance. No more running. Together we'll confront my past. It's time to face the darkness once and for all. His hands tightened around mine, and the tremble that danced in them imbued me with strength, an unbroken promise grounding us. The walls of the alley closed around us again, menacing presence still palpable in the shadows, weighed down by reminders of what we'd face. But in the depths of that impending confrontation, I knew we could weather the storm. We had unveiled ourselves beneath uncertainties, and together, we would stake our claim upon love, a refuge for one another amidst the shadows. Our hearts forever braided through the scars of yesterday as we began to forge a path forward. I whispered a thought that felt like a blossom in the morning light, gentle yet unyielding. Where you go I will follow. Each word fell like ripples across a stagnant pond, brightening the darkness that had threatened to consume us. And just as the murmur of our determined hearts crescendoed, my phone chimed, breaking the midnight hush. Glancing down, I felt a surge of emotion as I opened the message. A photo flashed on the screen. A familiar face smiled back. It was my mother, her unshakable warmth radiating through time. Beneath it, the words danced gently across the digital space. You are stronger than you think, and love will find a way. A tidal wave washed through understanding and acceptance, merging with hope that transcended everything. She was here, guiding me toward the power that dwelled within love, urging me to embrace both joy and pain. I looked up at Jacob, his eyes alive yet softened by unspoken promises, ready to forge ahead into uncharted territory. This time we wouldn't just survive. We would thrive, united hand in hand, out of the shadows and into the light, because in every act of love, we discover resilience that ignites the world. And together, we would create our story, a vibrant tapestry tailored from our trials, woven with threads of forgiveness and acceptance. As we took our first step away from the past and into the future, I whispered softly to the universe, "We choose love forever." And with that, we began to walk into the dawn, hearts entwined, ready to forge a new tale built on hope, the echo of a shared resolve guiding us toward a better tomorrow.